Whenever someone else's way of speaking, laughing, or even simply breathing causes you not just fleeting annoyance, but that searing, almost physiological spasm deep within, it's no accident. It's not merely someone's audacity, foolishness, or excessive self-confidence invading your personal space, violating the invisible boundaries of your comfort zone. It's something far more intimate, more personal than it seems at first glance. Imagine you are standing before a vast shimmering screen, and on it, as if by magic, images, character traits, and actions of other people appear, and each of these phenomena instantly triggers a wave of burning rage, icy contempt, or insatiable, corrosive envy within you. Perhaps it's someone else's ostentatious ambition, a bubbling energy that seems excessive and even repulsive to you. Or on the contrary, someone's deliberate vulnerability, an openness that causes you dull irritation. This screen is not just a mirror reflecting the external world. Its hustle and imperfections. It is a highly sensitive, holographic display of your own soul. And what is projected onto it is not another's, but your own shadow, cast by the light of another's existence. We call this the pole of irritation. It's not just a random trigger. It's a finely tuned, high-precision instrument calibrated specifically to the unique contours of your psyche. Another person, their specific traits, their provoking actions, they become merely a powerful projector that mercilessly yet precisely illuminates onto the screen of your reality what you so diligently hide from yourself. What is concealed in the darkest, most secret corners of your own inner world. They are your personal pole of irritation, and they carry something immeasurably greater than just fleeting discomfort or an annoying misunderstanding. They are living, breathing proof that you stubbornly, at times even desperately, reject. Something within yourself unwilling to acknowledge its existence. This is not merely an irritant. It is a mystical beacon pointing to something you so carefully conceal from yourself, something you have diligently locked away in the impenetrable dungeon of your subconscious, fearing its power or its imperfection. And here lies the paradox. In this burning aversion, in this irrational, at times uncontrollable fury, lies not a weakness of your character, nor a flaw in your psyche, but an incredible primal power. This is not just a negative reaction. It is a compass pointing to those parts of your personality that you once drove deep inside yourself, which you declared unacceptable, shameful, or dangerous for your survival in society. But these rejected aspects are desperately yearning to come to light, to be integrated and grant you true wholeness. Every such flash of irritation is not a signal to retreat, not a reason for self-flagellation, but a direct, insistent invitation to the deepest self-knowledge. This is not just a chance to understand why other people bother you so much, but also to gain access to those colossal inner resources, to that unrealized energy which you once rejected, locking them away along with this very shadow. But why do we, such rational and self-critical beings, react so acutely to the shadows of others if they are, in essence, our own, merely projected outwards? Where did this powerful yet invisible shadow come from? And most importantly, at what precise moment in the history of your inner world, during what fragile period of your personality's formation, did you decide that the qualities you now so vehemently condemn in others, be it healthy ambition, the aggression necessary to achieve goals, the right to make mistakes without which there is no growth, or even that very vulnerability that opens the way to true intimacy, are actually an integral part of you, but were declared outlawed by yourself, banished from conscious life? This question leads us to the origins, to that invisible barrier that separates you from your own complete wholeness. We spoke of the pole of irritation as a compass, of its ability to illuminate hidden worlds within us. But to understand why this compass points precisely there and not otherwise, we must descend to the origins, to the cradle where our shadow was formed. This is not just an abstract concept. It is a living, pulsating part of our history, the imprint of invisible lessons learned long before we understood their meaning. Recall, was there not a crossroads in your life, a quiet yet irreversible moment when you first felt that something within you, bright, sparkling, eager for expression, had to be hidden, when you perhaps were not told directly, but were made to understand ambition, that inner fire pushing towards heights is pride, greed, improperly excessive. You reached for the sun and you were pulled back, hinted at the danger of being burned, or worse, being ridiculed for daring. And then the sprout of aspiration for greatness for your own scale began to wither under the weight of an unspoken verdict. Or perhaps it was healthy aggression, that very life force that allows you to assert your boundaries, to say no, to defend your dignity. In childhood, it manifested as pure energy, as the right to your own opinion. But the world we grew up in often taught the opposite. Be obedient, don't argue. Good boys, girls, don't do that. Any display of assertiveness, be it a shout in response to injustice or a firm refusal, was met with disapproval, condemnation, and sometimes punishment. And then this powerful, primal energy, necessary for survival and self-realization, was imprisoned by shame, declared bad, unmannered, dangerous. And the right to make mistakes? How often did we hear that one must be perfect, that mistakes are unacceptable, that failure is a disgrace? At what point was a child's experiment inevitably leading to falls and bruises branded as failure rather than as part of the path of learning? This moment when the fear of being imperfect became stronger than the desire to try, became the boundary beyond which the ability to take risks, to engage in creative search, to express oneself freely, was buried under the weight of perfectionism. We learned to fear imperfection more than inaction. And finally, vulnerability. That very ability to be open, sincere, trusting, which is the foundation of true intimacy and deep self-knowledge. When did you realize that showing your weakness is dangerous, that tears are improper, that sincere expression of pain or fear would make you an easy target? Perhaps it was an experience of betrayal or ridicule, or simply the silent disapproval of adults who taught, be strong, don't cry, keep everything to yourself. And then you erected an impregnable wall around your heart, behind which you hid your tenderness, your vulnerability, your need for acceptance, thereby depriving yourself of the possibility of being truly alive, truly loved. All these moments, not always dramatic explosions, but more often imperceptible, repeating drops, carving out the stone of our consciousness. These were fleeting glances, intonations, unspoken expectations, which like invisible threads wove our inner reality. We were, in essence, forced to perform an amputation of the soul, cutting off parts of ourselves that we thought made us unacceptable to the tribe, be it family, school, society. We learned to hide our power, our light, our natural reactions to fit into others' molds. This is how, step by step, the shadow was formed. It is not just a set of bad qualities. It is the exiled aspects of our primal strength, which were declared outlawed by our own inner censor. They did not disappear. No, they simply went underground, lying low, waiting for the moment to manifest. And every time we see them in another person and feel that furious wave of irritation, it is nothing less than the echo of our own, once rejected but still living part. It is a call for the return of what was once lost. And in this return lies not only the key to understanding oneself, but also to unleashing the colossal energy that was locked away with these exiled parts. This is a universal mechanism, and its consequences are palpable in every aspect of our being. We spoke of poles of irritation, those sharp, sometimes irrational flashes of dislike that ignite within us at the sight of others' manners, others' success, others' vulnerability, and how this is nothing less than a mirror reflecting our own rejected facets. But to truly understand this mechanism, it is necessary to delve into the very nature of the shadow, its universal principles, its archaic roots. The shadow is not just a collection of negative qualities. It is an entire gallery of amputated parts of our soul pushed into a psychic vault due to an ancient, almost instinctive fear, the fear of being exiled from the tribe. Imagine a primitive human. To survive, they needed to be part of the community. Any deviation from accepted norms, any trait that could cause condemnation or rejection became a threat to their very existence. Thus, even in childhood, we learn to hide our healthy aggression, our vulnerability, our pride, our ambitions, our anger, everything that might seem wrong in the eyes of significant adults or peers. We voluntarily cut these parts from our psychic flesh to guarantee ourselves a place in the sun, in the warmth of the communal fire. We banished them, but they did not disappear. They merely went underground, becoming invisible yet pulsating phantoms. And here the second fundamental principle comes into play, the energy of an unpaid bill. Each of these exiled parts, each amputated facet, does not simply gather dust in oblivion. It carries a colossal charge of life energy, of potential that was never realized, never integrated into our wholeness. It's like a debt we incurred to ourselves, to our nature, and which accumulates interest year after year. These interests are the irritation, the envy, the contempt that we feel towards others. These are invisible threads through which the energy of our unpaid bills is projected onto the external world, demanding recognition and integration. We see in another person what we once severed in ourselves, and this encounter causes unbearable tension because it is an encounter with our own suppressed strength, with our unmastered territory. Recall the myth of Perseus and Medusa. The Gorgon's face was so terrifying that anyone who looked at her directly would instantly turn to stone. Perseus was able to defeat her only by looking at her reflection in a polished shield. He could not confront her monstrous reality face to face, but through an indirect image, he gained the ability to act. Similarly, with our shadow, its direct unintegrated image can be so frightening, so destructive to our ego that we are unable to look at it directly. This would turn us into stone, paralyze us with fear, shame, or guilt. And then the mechanism of projection comes into play. Another person becomes our shield, our mirror. We see our own Medusa, not in ourselves, but in someone else. Their traits, their actions, their manners, all of this becomes the reflection through which we can begin to recognize and perhaps one day integrate our own rejected aspects. This is a painful yet vitally important process leading to the attainment of genuine strength and wholeness. And there are certain archetypal figures that, as if by magic, always evoke this painful reflection in us, becoming unwitting carriers of our own unintegrated shadow. If irritation is a compass, where does it direct us in this labyrinth of our own soul? It points to those figures, those archetypal images that, like shadows in Plato's cave, dance on the walls of our perception, causing a particularly burning, irrational rejection. These reflections of an inner hell, these ghosts of our inner prohibitions, are embodied in specific types of people who seemingly, without any visible reason, evoke irrational hatred, contempt, or even physical revulsion in us. The first of these is perhaps the arrogant showman, the one who seems to brazenly bask in the spotlight, whose achievements, real or imagined, are paraded with defiant bravado. They speak too loudly, laugh too boisterously. Their stories are always the most incredible, and their success the most dazzling. You feel they are empty inside, their ego inflated to an indecent degree, and there is something deeply false, even repulsive in their self-admiration. You feel not just dislike for them, but an almost physical revulsion, a desire to turn away, to drown out their voice, not to see their shining smile. Why? Because their existence is a living embodiment of what you perhaps once forbade yourself. The right to be seen, the right to declare your merits, the right to healthy pride that is not afraid of others' judgment. Another phantom capable of driving you crazy is the idle wanderer, a person who, in your opinion, lives without purpose, without effort, as if drifting with the current, avoiding any responsibility. They may be talented but do not realize their potential. They may be free, but their freedom seems to you like thoughtlessness bordering on parasitism. Their disorganization, their refusal of adult obligations, their seeming carefree nature cause you dull irritation and at times contempt. In every breath they take, you hear a reproach to your own discipline, your own shoulds and musts. You see irresponsibility in them, but you don't realize that this might be a distorted reflection of your own suppressed desire to cast off shackles, to rest, to allow yourself to be imperfect, not to chase eternal productivity. And finally, the third, often causing a storm of indignation, is the eternal victim, the one who constantly complains about life, blames circumstances or others, and seems to revel in their misfortune, using it as a shield or even a weapon. Their weakness, their inability to take responsibility for their life, their endless requests for help that lead to no change evoke a mix of pity and dull anger in you. You want to shake them, make them act, stop whining. But what if this figure is merely a distorted echo of your own suppressed vulnerability, your inability to ask for help, to admit your weakness, to allow yourself to be imperfect, not to be afraid of appearing weak in the eyes of others? You reject them because you have rejected this part of yourself. Let me tell you a story about one such Showman. An old university acquaintance of mine, let's call him Max, was always like that. He didn't just talk about his successes, he proclaimed them with dramatic pauses and exaggerated gestures. At every alumni gathering, he was the center of attention, telling stories of his dizzying projects, how he made $1 million, how he beat all the competitors. I, a person who prefers modesty and quiet, would feel a wave of burning aversion rise within me every time. His laugh seemed fake, his stories embellished, his self-satisfaction unbearable. I condemned him for empty boasting, for lack of depth, for superficiality. He was for me the embodiment of everything I despised in people. I avoided him, left the room when he started his monologues, and the more I despised him, the more he seemed to shine in my eyes, becoming an unbearable reminder of something. Of what exactly? These demons, these irritating phantoms whom we so vehemently reject, are not merely random passers-by on our life's path. They are invisible threads woven from our own psychic fabric, messengers who come to us in the guise of the traits we hate most. They carry within them not only what we have rejected, but also what we could gain. The irony of fate is that each of these enemies points to a treasure, to a strength that has been exiled deep into our shadow. What if behind this repulsive facade lies something that you yourself once banished from yourself, something valuable and powerful awaiting its return? Gaze into the shadows dancing on the walls of your perception, into the faces that cause sharp, almost physical pain of rejection. For every demon, every phantom so furiously irritating your inner peace is not a curse, but a distorted message, a tightly knotted gift that was once expelled from the temple of your soul. It is not a vice, but a perverted form of life. Force that you yourself, in fear or ignorance, locked deep in the dungeons of your unconscious. Answer yourself. What valuable ability, what inherent right have you forbidden yourself by pushing this vice into the silent shadow? Take, for example, the one we named the arrogant showman. Their exaggerated self-promotion, their insatiable need to be the center of attention, their booming declaration of their real or imagined achievements. All of this evokes a wave of disgust in us, bordering on righteous anger. But behind this mask, behind this shouting facade, something else is hidden. The showman is a distorted reflection of your own suppressed ability to manifest, to healthy pride, to the right to assert yourself loudly without embarrassment or false modesty. In them you see not arrogance, but an inept, crude attempt to express the power that slumbers within you. The right to be seen, the right to be heard, the right to occupy your rightful place in the sun. You may have forbidden yourself this ability, fearing judgment, afraid of appearing pushy or a braggart, and thereby amputated a part of your charisma, your leadership potential, your ability to inspire and lead. You exiled your own radiant essence into the shadow, preferring a gray cocoon of inconspicuousness. And what about the idle wanderer, their seeming irresponsibility, their free attitude toward time and obligations, their refusal of the eternal race for success and productivity? All of this can evoke caustic contempt disguised as moral condemnation. But in this idle wanderer, in their lightness of being, is contained what you yourself have suppressed: the ability for spontaneity, for true rest, for unconditional enjoyment of life without guilt, for the right to imperfection and even to inaction. You may have forbidden yourself this freedom, shackling yourself with endless planning, perfectionism, and the fear of missing out or being not good enough. You discarded the right to inner peace, to aimless wandering through the paths of the soul, to self-acceptance regardless of external achievements. In them, you project your own longing for ease, for the ability to let go of control and let life lead you, rather than constantly fighting it. This is your suppressed need for true freedom, for creative chaos, for trust in the flow of life. And finally, the eternal victim. Their endless complaints, their helplessness, their inability to take responsibility for their own life evoke a mix of irritation and distaste in us. We want to shake them by the shoulders and shout, "Get a grip." But this figure is a distorted mirror of your own suppressed vulnerability, your inability to ask for help, to admit your weakness, or simply to allow yourself to be imperfect. You may have forbidden yourself this right, convincing yourself that a strong person always handles things alone, that asking for support is a sign of weakness, and showing pain is unacceptable. Thus you cut yourself off from the deepest human connection, from the possibility of being seen in your true, imperfect nature, from the right to empathy and support. You exiled into the shadow your own need for compassion, for human warmth, for the ability to be open and receive love. The strength you rejected is the strength to be yourself in all your fragility and imperfection, and to allow others to help you when needed. Each of these demons is not merely an irritating factor, but a cry from your own soul, a call for the return of lost parts. However, beyond direct irritation, the power exiled into the shadow has another far more insidious function. It pushes us toward decisions that seemingly should protect us, but in reality only lead us away from the true path. And now we stand on the threshold of that very abyss, where metaphor ceases to be just a beautiful image and becomes a tangible reality shaping your days and nights. We spoke of demons, those archetypal figures that evoke a storm of indignation within us, serving as distorted mirrors of our own rejected shadow. But how does this inner conflict, this fear of being like what we despise, actually cripple our lives, forcing us to make decisions contrary to our true desires and potential? Imagine a person who, in childhood, was constantly reprimanded for any attempt to express themselves, for the courage to speak loudly, for healthy ambitions perceived by those around them as arrogance or boasting. In their inner world, the arrogant showman was not just banished. They were branded with shame. Growing up, this person, driven by a subconscious terror of becoming what they themselves once condemned, begins to avoid any situations requiring self-presentation. They are a brilliant engineer, but do not apply for a leadership position because it would require public speaking and defending their ideas. They create an innovative product but hesitate to present it to the wider public, fearing being too noticeable, a show-off. Their ideas remain in the shadows, their potential unrealized, and less talented colleagues, not lacking healthy courage, reap the benefits of their indecision. Their fear of being like that arrogant showman they so despise deprives them of recognition, financial well-being, and most importantly, a sense of self-fulfillment. They constantly choose invisibility, even if it means missing the chance of a lifetime. Or take another. They are irritated by the idle wanderer, the one who seems to live carefree, not bothering with plans, allowing themselves mistakes, enjoying the moment. In their world, perhaps workaholism, perfectionism, and a constant sense of duty were cultivated since childhood. Rest is for the weak. Mistakes are unacceptable. Spontaneity is irresponsibility. These mantras are deeply ingrained. Now, as an adult, they are obsessed with control, afraid to deviate from their schedule for even a minute, feeling guilty for any hint of relaxation. They refuse vacations because the work won't do itself, or once on vacation, cannot relax, constantly checking emails. They do not allow themselves spontaneous decisions, do not take risks in new projects where there is no clear plan, and even in personal life, avoid any uncertainty. The fear of being the idle wanderer, whom they consider worthless and irresponsible, condemns them to chronic overwork, burnout, and an inability to enjoy life because they constantly choose exhausting control instead of a lively, flexible response to the world. And finally, the one who feels disgust for the eternal victim, a person who, in their opinion, manipulates with weakness, constantly complains, and seeks sympathy. In their own history, perhaps, the display of vulnerability was punished or ignored. They learned to be strong, to be a rock, never to ask for help. Now they are unable to admit their own weakness, even when it is obvious. They refuse support even when drowning, afraid of appearing complaining or helpless. They do not share their difficulties with loved ones, erecting a wall of alienation, because the fear of being like that victim they so despise forces them to carry the entire burden of the world alone. This leads to emotional exhaustion, isolation, and ultimately to the destruction of relationships, because their choice is always to be strong at the expense of genuine intimacy and humanity. You might now be internally resisting, saying, but those people really are arrogant, lazy, complaining. My irritation is perfectly justified. Are you saying I should become like them? And this is an absolutely natural objection. No, the point is not to become what you despise. The point is to understand that the intensity of your reaction is not so much a judgment of the other person as it is a signal about your own suppressed part. The shadow does not call you to destructive behavior. It merely points to an energy or ability that has been rejected. The arrogant showman is not about rudeness, but about the right to assert oneself. The idle wanderer is not about irresponsibility, but about the capacity for spontaneity and rest. The eternal victim is not about manipulation, but about the right to vulnerability and acceptance of help. Your fear of being like these demons forces you to make disadvantageous decisions for yourself because you unconsciously avoid anything that might even remotely remind you of these rejected qualities. You choose safety over growth, control over freedom, and isolation over intimacy, all due to an internal war with yourself projected onto the external world. You fear not the demon itself, but the aspect of it that lives within you, that part you once locked away. As long as this part remains confined, its energy will manifest as intense irritation, and your decisions will be dictated by fear, not true desire. But what if the mirror reflects not only what we reject, but also what we idealize? What if the brightest light we see in others is also a projection, not of our shadow, but of our unrealized potential? We have explored the labyrinths of our shadow, those exiled parts of the soul that, like phantom pains, manifest as irrational irritation towards others. We understood that others' mannerisms, their audacity, or their vulnerability are nothing more than mirrors reflecting our own suppressed ambitions, fear of imperfection, or inability to ask for help. This is an amputation of the soul, depriving us of wholeness. However, the mirror, as we know, is not one-sided. It reflects not only what we push away with disgust, but also what we place on a pedestal with admiration. Imagine a constellation where each star is someone's talent, someone's spark of genius, someone's ability that seems unattainable, almost divine to you. This isn't just admiration, it's a deep, almost mystical attraction to a person who you feel embodies something grand, something you fatally lack. We are talking about a concept Jung called the golden shadow. These are not the rejected, but the idealized aspects of our own personality, our unrealized yet immense potential that we, for some reason, have given away to others. Think for a moment. Who is your idol? Not necessarily a literal pop star, but that person, an artist, a thinker, an entrepreneur, a speaker whose mastery, courage, insight, or unique style makes you pause in admiration. Someone whose life or work seems to embody perfection in a field you yourself dream of but have never dared to take the first step in. At this moment, we commit an act of projection no less insidious than rejection. We see in another person the diamonds that are actually hidden within our own depths. These are our unrealized talents, our dormant abilities, our latent dreams, which we may have once denied the right to exist. Perhaps as children we were told, don't be such a show-off when we wanted to express ourselves, or you dream too much when we drew fantastical worlds, or that's not serious when we were passionate about an idea that didn't fit within established norms. And now, decades later, we look at someone who dared to embody this, and we feel a mix of awe and a deep, almost unbearable longing. This admiration, however pure it may seem, can become a golden cage. It sabotages us, convincing us that this is only given to the chosen few. I can never do that, or my place is to be a spectator, not a creator. We sign an unspoken agreement. I will admire you as long as you embody my unfulfilled dreams, and I will remain in the shadows, convinced of my inadequacy. We give our power, our energy, our potential to the altar of another's success instead of cultivating it within ourselves. This is not merely passive observation. It is an active alienation from our own essence. Every time we exclaim, "Oh, how they do that," instead of asking ourselves, what in me wants to manifest in a similar way, we cut off our path to self-realization. It's a paradox. We are drawn to light, yet at the same time, we fear our own brightness. We see something in our idol that is actually our own undiscovered treasure. And this treasure, like gold locked in a chest, brings us no benefit until we acknowledge it as ours and find the key. So, who is your idol or object of admiration in the field that draws you? What are your own talents and unrealized abilities that you have given to them? Allow this question to resonate within you like a tuning fork aligning the strings of your soul. This is not a question of envy, but one of self-discovery. For what we deify externally is often merely an echo of what yearns to be manifested within us. And if the mirror reflects not only what we push away, but also what we place on a pedestal, what else is it capable of showing us when we are truly ready to look into it? We have traced the ghostly threads that extend from our irritation and admiration to the most hidden corners of the soul. We have seen in them not a curse, but a compass pointing to hidden treasures. But knowledge without action is merely a beautiful mirage. It's time not just to see the shadow, but to enter into dialogue with it, to reclaim what was unjustly rejected. I propose a new philosophy, not just a concept, but a living principle capable of transforming your reality. This is a philosophy of total integration, calling for the return of every fragment of your soul, even the darkest. Your shadow is not a monster to be defeated, but a precious gem awaiting its facets. Your golden shadow is not an unattainable ideal, but a mirror of your true potential. The power given away to projections, whether negative or positive, is your life energy, locked in the images of others. It's time to unleash this energy. Imagine that every strong emotional experience you have toward another person is a kind of cosmic signal, a personal message from your unconscious. It's not just a reaction, it's an invitation to explore. Here's your practical tool, your mirror exercise, allowing you to transform irritation and admiration into a powerful lever for self-discovery. Step 1, identifying the echo. Sit in silence and allow yourself to recall the person who causes you the most intense, burning irritation. Or conversely, someone who inspires you to the core, whom you almost deify. Do not judge yourself for these feelings. Simply accept them as they are. Now focus on a specific trait or mannerism of this person that elicits such a strong reaction from you. Not the person as a whole, but something very specific. Perhaps it's their audacity, irresponsibility, showiness, or their flawlessness, calmness, talent. Name this trait with one as precise a word as possible. Step 2, meeting the reflection. Now turn your gaze inward. Where and when do you yourself suppress this quality? Where are you afraid to express it? Where do you feel you don't have the right to it? If someone's audacity irritates you, ask yourself, where am I too timid? Where do I not allow myself to be confident or assertive enough? If someone's carefreeness fills you with admiration, ask, where am I too tense? Where do I not allow myself to relax and enjoy the moment without guilt? You might discover that the audacity that annoys you is actually healthy self-confidence that you have forbidden yourself, and the carefreeness you admire is your own long-forgotten capacity for spontaneity and joy. This does not mean you must become an exact copy of that person. It means that the seed of this quality already exists within you. It simply needs light and nourishment. Step 3, integration and reclaiming power. Choose one small, safe action that will allow you to express this quality in your life today. No drastic changes are needed. A micro step is sufficient. If someone's audacity bothers you, try saying no just once to a request you usually accept, simply to taste that confidence. If you admire someone's carefreeness, allow yourself half an hour of guilt-free idleness, simply watching the clouds or listening to music. Do this consciously with full presence. Feel how the energy that was previously directed at judging or idealizing another returns to you. This is not just an exercise, it's an alchemical process, transforming the lead of external reactions into the gold of internal understanding. Every projection is a fragment of your soul that was leased to the external world. Now you are reclaiming it. Your shadow is not an enemy, but a faithful guardian pointing to undiscovered gifts and unused potential. Let our new philosophy be not a fight with the shadow, but a dance with it. A dance in which every step is a step toward wholeness, every turn toward acceptance, every movement toward finding your authentic self. We are no longer victims of our unconscious reactions, but conscious creators of our reality, able to see a lesson in every irritation, a promise in every admiration. This path of shadow integration opens doors to the deepest self-understanding and the liberation of immense internal resources. But what happens when we stop projecting? How do our relationships with the world change when we see people not through the prism of our internal conflicts, but as they truly are? And what if not everything we see in others is merely a reflection of our shadow, but there is something that transcends our personal projections, something that demands a different kind of response from us?